We spend far too much time worried about what makes us different than the next person or better than the next person, and not enough time thinking about why we should respect the next person. We all have a story, an overarching theme that runs through our lives and makes us who we are. The problem is, we think that since each of our stories is different, there's not a lot of perceived value and shared struggle. But we have far more in common than we can imagine, and what motivates one person can certainly help us as well. The Third Lap podcast is about understanding, respecting, and appreciating the struggle that it takes to overcome immeasurable odds in order to reach your destiny. Join me as I interview and bond with some of the most inspiring and incredible people, diving into their why to get a full understanding of their being. Without each other, we have nothing. So let's go on this adventure together and take on the future with open minds and open hearts. Welcome to the Third Lap podcast. What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Preparing for a wonderful weekend, I hope. I'm here today on the Third Lap podcast, connecting with the homie, man. Real excited about this one. It's been a long time coming. It's my man, Vlad D'Argenio, husband, father, insurance lawyer, former state's attorney, and former college football player. And last but not least, also terribly a Giants fan, unfortunately, for folks listening. You already know I get down with the Birds, so the Giants, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, man, definitely happy to connect with Vlad today and talk about his story. Vlad, what's going on? How's everything?
I'm blessed to be here, man. I'm excited. A Four Rings podcast, we should call it. But I'm just really glad that our vibe connected the way it did. I'm glad that we share the same energy in the same space, even though we're like yin yang, opposite sides of the coin. I have tremendous respect for you. I've enjoyed some of your initial podcasts, some of the early joints, like your wife, your mom, some of the Eagle lovers. But bro, I'm very blessed to be here. I'm thankful. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, man. I appreciate you, dude. Yeah, we could. This the anti-Tom Brady podcast too. Eagles Giants. We kept Tom Brady from really being the extreme GOAT. So we could connect on that. We good. I found
crazy.
Yeah, man. Thank God. He'd be 10 championships deep, and I'd be crying tears.
3 drives kept him from 9-0.
Bro, that's the craziest part, right?
That's bananas.
Thank goodness we weren't the Falcons. Shout out to all the Falcons fans.
Dirty.
Right. Shout out. But yeah, so how we know each other. So this is wow. So I went to the gun range out here in Philadelphia with my cousin Sheila and my pops.
Stay ready, y'all.
Yeah, stay ready. Stay ready. So you don't gotta get ready. You're already. And so went to the range for my birthday and actually bumped into Vlad and his homeboy. And we was like close ranges. We chopped it up a little bit. You ended up talking for a while with my pops. And so, once that conversation was over, yeah, Pops, shout out Pops. I connected with you and Maurice, kind of got y'all information. You and I stayed rocking ever since. Shout outs to Maurice too. You were actually one of like the first people outside my close circle to give me positive affirmations and feedback about the podcast. And so I'll forever sing your praises for that because
well deserved though, man.
So we had that conversation. I was like, I don't know if I'm doing anything actually. I know my mom likes it, but my mom like everything I do. So, it was good to get that affirmation and feedback from you. I appreciate you, brother. But yeah, anything you want to add about how we know each other?
Well, I want to say when you see a train going to a good stop, to a good destination, you jump on. And when I saw that you had this energy about the whole vibe of the Third Lap podcast, the whole ethos of it, the whole heart of it, I said that, we kind of chopped it up about this before. I don't know at my age how well connected I am to the generations coming behind me. But if this is and that is important to me, but if that is a way for me to have a voice and me to have a connection to that, and one that's as positive as the direction you're taking this podcast, I want to be on. I want to get down, get in where I fit in, bro.
Yo, I appreciate you, and we about to get in and fit in right now, man. And we've been back to the range several times. Added some artillery, and we don't want to get into all that, but we added a couple tools to the arsenal.
No doubt.
Yeah, man. Always a good time with you and more at the range, man. It's super therapeutic. I need to go back soon. I haven't been in a while, so gotta pull back up over there again. We'll make it happen. And so Vlad, man, this is the Rep Your Hood section. So where you from?
Shaolin. from the slums of Shaolin.
Say that.
Yeah, no, no, most deaf, most deaf. Grew up in the projects of Staten Island. Learned a lot about a lot out there. My mom, unfortunately, she had a stroke right when COVID hit. So the quarantining started March 18th of last year, and my mom had the stroke March 25th, and it was even a few months before I got to see her. But she still has the apartment there where I grew up. I grew up on the 17th floor in the highest projects in Staten Island. um, when I left for college, she went to the other building. There's two buildings, 185 and 165 St. Mark's. So I grew up in 165, and then went to when I left, she went to 185, and she still has a place over there. So I come through from time to time, get a mail, but a lot of memories out there. You know.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry to hear about your mom, man. And we had talked about that not too long. We actually met and then had connected, several times. But you told me about your mom, and definitely hear. Sorry to hear that that had happened, but
Hmm.
yeah, Shaolin, bro. It's iconic, man.
I was there before it was Shaolin. I was
Yeah.
there when it was, we couldn't even get into rap songs.
Mm,
It wasn't until
yeah.
I was in college that Wu blew it up, and
Right.
we finally got the props.
Yeah, I
So
watched that the documentary for folks on Hulu of Mikes and Men. So
yeah, I gotta check that.
man, check it because you will love it because they right there,
Hmm.
in Shaolin. Like you probably know some of the places,
Hmm.
but Wu talked about that. Like the RZA talked about the fact that before Wu Tang really blew up, it wasn't Staten Island. Like nobody was really repping, nobody was really checking for it, and so but now it's Shaolin, bro. Everybody know the
Yeah,
Killer Bees, man.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. And have there been any other places that you've lived that have impacted you in your career?
Oh, absolutely. So I lived in Millersville, Pennsylvania for 6 years. Took me six to graduate undergrad. Lived in Florida. Now that's a different town. I know that I think you lived in Florida a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was in Orlando for 2 years at Full Sail. Shout out Full Sail alumni. What up, Full?
So I was in Lee County, Fort Myers, Florida, and I'll never forget, brother. You're gonna love this. So I was down in April, like spring break time, for a job interview for the state's attorney's office to be a prosecutor. And I'm at a Ruby Tuesdays, and I guess the lighting was a little off. And just for your people to get some perspective, my name is crazy, right? Vladimir Dargenio. My mom is Haitian, and that name Vladimir, because Vladimir Guerrero, Vladimir Ducasse, these are athletes, professional athletes that come from the Caribbean. Guerrero is a Dominican-born athlete, and Ducasse is Haitian like myself, half Haitian like myself. Well, he's full Haitian, I'm half Haitian. But so I'm light skinned. I can slither, I can chameleon this thing, right? So the lighting, I guess, was hitting me on the kind of like the Caucasoid side, and this woman's telling me all about Fort Myers. She's chatting me up. I know she's trying to get with me. She chatting me up, and she's like, "But whatever you do, if you get the job and you get a place, don't go near the court. Don't live near the courthouse because that's where the coloreds live." And I'm like,
Oh my God.
"Oh, you know,
Oh my
this is
God.
2006,
Of
bro.
course. Of course. The
The
coloreds.
coloreds, the, the
Like what
coloreds."
color are they? They green over there? I don't know.
So that was an interesting time living in Florida. It was one of the best times of my life
Mm,
professionally. Of course, there's challenges. It kind of ruined my marriage.
mm,
I was, just so people have some perspective, I'm on my second marriage. But my marriage to my first wife kind of was going through some things, and then I moved to Florida to be a prosecutor. And while it was the best professional experience in my life, it kind of devastated my marriage. So for those who may be listening, you can find love again, you can recover, you can heal, you can. And I have an
right.
excellent relationship with my daughter's mother.
Right.
um, we're actually on a prayer group together, and we have a prayer call every Wednesday.
Nice.
So you can co-parent in peace.
Right.
It don't have to be swords and guillotines and
Right.
courts. So I don't know who that was for, but I hope it was for somebody.
Yo, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
You never know who it's for, right? Like somebody comes
Mhm.
across this and they're trying to see that second iteration of themselves after the first one didn't work out. That's
Mhm.
motivation for them, right? Like you said, you can find that love again.
Yes,
And so,
sir.
Vlad, you started to tap into the story a little bit. You mentioned Millersville.
Mm-hmm.
You played a little ball at Millersville. You did a little thing over
No
there.
doubt. Uh-huh.
And then also the state's attorney work, which you said was like iconic in regards to your career. And I definitely want to dig into
Oh,
that too,
absolutely.
because I want to hear about that
Yes, sir.
experience and what you learned and gained from that. But yeah, let's start it off,
Mm-hmm.
man. Start us off on your journey, wherever you feel like it makes sense to start us off for your origin story.
So my origin story has to begin with the three F's, and recently, as probably from this Sunday, I added a fourth F to my life. Right, it reflects my grades throughout high school and college, but there's three F's that define me. So the first is faith, the second is family, the third is football. And after a message that I just heard from Pastor Dr. Darius this past weekend, I'm adding fire to that because you have to be intentional about excellence. Please,
Yeah,
please, y'all, don't be going through the motions and whatever you find yourself doing.
right.
Be intentionally passionate about being fantastic at what you do. And that's like this podcast to me is a reflection of that fire. We're not out here just going through motions. We chopping it up about real big things. And the genesis of that three F's, four F's now begins with football. It's not like the order of priorities family is faith, family, and football, but the genesis began with football. So I had busted my ankle in half. Actually, I folded my leg in half when I was 9 years old. I got hit by a bicycle in the projects. Bike didn't have no brakes, right? It hit me so hard, it flipped me from running forward to sitting on my butt. And when I rolled up my leg, my pants leg, my big toe was pointed backwards behind me. So to this day, my right foot is a 9 and my left foot is an 11, 11 and a half. I had two pins in my leg, had reconstructive surgery in my ankle. I was casted for 6 months, right? So that happened when I was 9. Legs were shorter, therapy. I had to be homeschooled, tutored, and all that. But at around 14, I started playing football with the dudes around the block. And I finally found me. I finally found that thing that made me me, and then I joined the team. Now get this, right? I joined the team at 15. And I think to talk about me, we're gonna have to talk a little bit about my mom and that dynamic. But my mom, who's Haitian, who's controlling, who really wanted her child to be, and I'm an only child, she really wanted me to be a certain way. So she said, no, you broke your leg too bad, you can't play football. Now, you're gonna get to notice about me, but if you know me, I don't respond well to you can't. I've been told my whole life you can't, right? So she didn't pay for me to go to camp. I sat the bench as a sophomore because I didn't play freshman year. I sat the bench as a sophomore because I didn't get to go to football camp. The next summer, I went to work with my dad at a bakery as a baker's assistant for the whole summer just to pay for my camp, and wound up, becoming a starter and then going to college. But the life skills I learned in football, teamwork, hard work, perseverance, mental toughness, collaboration, adversity, you know, competitive spirit, all of these things God used them to form me, right? I say God used football because he knew that that would be the vehicle that would eventually lead me to him. By developing all of these core skills, because I was a nerd, bro. I was called nerd every day my freshman year of high school because I wasn't playing yet. But then I started hitting the push-ups every night, to MC Ultra Magnetic, you know, MC Ultra Magnetic. If you remember that joint, I would just do push-ups until my arms couldn't move. So coming from that broken leg to my mom saying, no, you can't play. No, I'm not going to pay for you to play. To, you can't start. You didn't go to football camp. To, I mean, just kept hearing no until I got a college scholarship. I got a full ride to Millersville. It was a tuition waiver, so we got to be clear. Millersville's Division II, but the athletic director slipped me a board of governors scholarship because I was out of state. I didn't have to pay. You know what I'm saying? And then even in college, like my career ended before my senior year because I busted my other ankle playing basketball, came down on somebody's foot. So what God used to develop my character, he then took away to elevate my character because I had overcome so much. I thought I had an S on my chest. And then when I was laying on the ground with a busted ankle again, other ankle this time, left ankle, for months they misdiagnosed me, bruh. They were telling me I wasn't working hard enough. I'm a punk. I'm not, I'm not trying hard enough in rehab. Meanwhile, a stress fracture doesn't show up on X-ray. It's like a dent in your muscle. So if I took a bat and dented your car, it wouldn't show up as a line. It wouldn't show up as a crack, but it'd be an indentation. That's what a stress fracture is. So that ended my career. So I went from a 3-year starter, freshman year, redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior, had my own whip, had everything, women, to having nothing. Body gone, abs gone, football gone. They took my scholarship, gone. Bruh, it took me 2 more years to rebuild my academics. The year before the year I broke my ankle, I got a 0.25. 0.25. Do you know what I'm saying? So to to define who I am, faith, family, and football, you have to understand that it started with football. Then when I busted my ankle, I finally was in the place where I was humble enough to come to faith. I never stepped foot in a church till I was 24 years old. I realized, God gave me a job and I knew I had it before I even interviewed. So when I realized, a lot of people come to God through adversity, through God, I need a savior. I came through a blessing. I knew I got a job I didn't deserve. I knew that 0.25, I earned that. And so eventually, like, you realize I'm getting blessed. I don't deserve these blessings. I need to find out the blesser. And then from that, he gave me a family, a real family.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah. Man, and that's such a beautiful sort of breakdown of it, right? That like the football became the foundation that allowed you to build on top of it. Yeah, and I could tell you very much like me, right? Like just because you tell me I can't do it doesn't mean it won't get done. It just means I have to figure out how to do it without you, right? Like you just won't be involved now. Cool. Thank you for letting me know.
Exactly.
And, shouts out to your mom because, clearly she was making that choice because she thought it was in your best interest. But in the end of the day, it's also on us to explore these opportunities, right? To take challenges on. That's crazy that they took your scholarship. And, that's something I would love to see stop happening in college sports, specifically college football. Even the piece that you said around like you're not trying hard enough rehabbing, like the amount of shame that gets put on injured players is just mind-boggling. These are human beings, right? Like we're not talking about robots. Like you're talking about yourself as a human and these human injuries that you've incurred over time. And bro, you earned that scholarship. There's no reason why they took it away, whether you can still ball or not. That you put your time and you put your work
You
in.
want to know what's crazy, bro? The reason why, so I broke my ankle playing basketball. I was up there taking a winter course to make sure I was eligible.
Yeah.
Football's tough. So I was playing basketball and I came down on my roommate's foot and I rolled my ankle so hard outside that it dented the inside of my ankle. So the medial side is the inside, right? So I didn't get diagnosed and I didn't get surgery till like 6 months later.
Wow.
And the reason why I didn't get properly diagnosed is because the head trainer, this is what he told me to my face. Because I eventually used my own insurance to get a bone scan to find out what was wrong with my ankle. Because I knew that work I was putting in, I wasn't faking. He looked me dead in my face and said, I didn't think you could afford an MRI. So I never ordered one because I didn't think you had insurance. Like, what you think I'm some kind of like?
Hey yo, bruh. Come on, man. But again, this is not unheard of. NFL players talk about this with their team doctors, right? Like Tyrod Taylor missed the whole season because his team doctor punctured his lung, and he can't sue because collective bargaining agreement, right? And so, we put a lot of trust into our medical professionals, and shout outs to them because it's not an easy job, but like that is a job in which you have to have empathy. You're dealing with human beings, right? Like, I had an issue with my doctor on my shoulder recently where like he misdiagnosed me for 6 months and now he's talking about something very serious. And I'm like, bruh, had I not called you, I wouldn't even know that this was going on. You didn't reach out to me, right? And so, I really would love to see it in general medical professionals step into this field and be way more empathetic and understanding. But I want to get caught up on that because you got a whole story to tell. So
Sure,
like, we'll
no
definitely
doubt.
continue down. So you had to figure out what was next for you from Millersville. You said that you were blessed with the opportunity post graduation with a job. So yeah, talk us through that,
Mm-hmm.
man. You were you started off. It looks like here PMA Insurance Group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's where I am now, actually,
Okay.
ironically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
this. So I was working at an internship at RCA. If you remember RCA, they made TVs and stuff. And I had a girlfriend off and on for like 4+ years at Millersville. Remember, it took me 6. So I scooped her up when she was a freshman. And we had gone through some things, and I had just decided to stay at Millersville to, I had already graduated, but I was still working at this internship. So I had decided to stay, to be with her, to keep working on that. And the phone rang. And before it rang, I said, "This is a job." And I picked it up, and it happened to be the guy who wound up hiring me at PMA. And as he's talking, asking me if I'm interested in it, I knew I already had the job. And so, long story short, I was at PMA for a while, but that blessing led me to go to church for the first time. And once I found church, I found peace. I've never experienced peace. As a football player, you're a warrior. You are trained to be calm and ferocious simultaneously in battle. But my ferocity came from an inner anger at my mom, anger at my situation, at my poverty, at, growing up in the projects, being biracial, not being really accepted with whites, not being really well, I got accepted with the brothers and, with the cause eventually, but you have to prove yourself, you have to prove who you are, but you have these identity issues. And then eventually, once I found a relationship with my heavenly Father, it filled me with peace. Like, I wasn't angry anymore, I wasn't raging anymore. My license plate was Vlad 187. I carried a gun with me everywhere in college. You in college, get an education, bruh. So, once I got that peace, I couldn't stay at PMA. I went to seminary. I left PMA to go to seminary full time, and I wound up getting licensed to preach, ordained as a deacon first, then ordained as a reverend upon graduating seminary. And interesting story, they wanted to put my pastor out. The deacons, I had a new pastor, young pastor, and the previous pastor was there 40 something years. So the deacons there had beef with him. So they called the police to come get him. Like, no, you're not going to preach. No. You doing too many crazy stuff. You trying to change too much around here. So the police come, and at the time, I'm chairman of the deacon board, which is the like in the Baptist church, it's the leadership body of the church. And so the way I resolved the matter, the police weren't invited guests. They had no authority there was no crime being committed. So they had, but the way I handled it, people were like, "Wow, you should be a lawyer." And I had never, ever, ever had any intention, any desire, didn't think I could. But on a whim, on a humble, I said, let me just take the LSAT. But the way I go about my life, success is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And I borrowed a couple $100 from my pastor and a couple $100 from my dad. And I took a prep test, Kaplan. And I scored in the top 10% of the country and got a full ride to law school. So I just knew that that's what God had wanted me to do. And I knew that the area that I was most interested, get this, was being a defense attorney. Because growing up in the projects, growing up hood, you see a lot of drugs and a lot of guns, but Smith and Wesson don't have no factories in the hood. There's no Colombian, Bolivian cocaine, plants in the hood. So all of that stuff is just getting dumped in there. But we were the ones getting arrested and doing major time. So, you gobbling up the little fish, letting the big fish eat. So I was like, nah, I got to do social justice. And then I wanted to figure out how the other side thought. So I interned at the Staten Island DA's office, and I met victims. And I said, ooh, no, can't be a defense attorney. Could not do it. Ironically, though, I did a criminal defense clinic at Hofstra. Shout out to Hofstra. But and then ironically enough, well, we'll get to it later, so I'm gonna save that jewel for the end. But yeah, I wanted to be a prosecutor because there's no way. What a lot of what defense attorneys do, a lot of their practice is cops are incompetent, victims are liars. So if you can convince a jury that a police officer is incompetent or a victim is a liar, your client walks. That's just not what I wanted to be doing. I didn't feel like God was calling me to that. So I did feel like as a prosecutor, I could do justice. I could serve because prosecutors take a second oath. Every attorney that gets sworn into the bar takes the oath of attorney, which is to zealously represent the best interests of your client. But a prosecutor takes a secondary oath, the prosecutorial oath to justice, so that no matter what case is before you, you seek justice, which is the right result with compassion, with fairness, with integrity under these facts. So that was gold to me. I was a prosecutor down in Florida.
Right.
It was a death penalty state. I'm anti-death penalty. They knew it. They still hired me,
Right.
and I was very successful down there. So, would you like to?
Yeah, we tapping in, Vlad. We tapping into this one,
Uh-huh.
man. So,
Uh-huh.
and it's funny because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I remember having a very similar conversation with my mom because I was like,
Wow.
man, I don't want to be a defense attorney because like I'm not trying to help people that are guilty get off, but like I
Uh-huh.
can't be a state attorney or a DA because like I'm not trying to put innocent people away. And
Uh-huh.
so I also had very little understanding of how many different realms of law that there are, right? Like as a little black
Mm.
kid growing up in the inner city, all you
Mm-hmm.
saw was criminal investigations. And so,
Mm.
I didn't even know that insurance law and like all these other sports attorneys, like all of this stuff existed. I was
Mm-hmm.
in a very small, I had a very small understanding of that. So to hear you go through that same sort of transition was very interesting. And for me personally, like I will never, victim blaming is not at all what I'm a part of. I don't believe in
Ooh.
it. I'm all about like the advocacy of victims, lifting victim voices up so that
Yes,
we can all
sir.
learn and understand how not to victimize others. Having said that, and 100% I believe that, I do believe most police are incompetent. I do believe in abolishing the police as they exist and the police states as they exist. And I believe in abolishing and reforming the prison industrial complex. And so I would love to hear though, and the reason why I was so excited to have you on here is because I
Mm-hmm.
also respect the heck out of you as a
Mm-hmm.
person, and I
Mm-hmm.
know you as a person. And so I would love to hear your work as a state's attorney. We actually had a conversation about like people getting as a person that doesn't drink or smoke, and I have. And we had a whole conversation
Wait,
about getting people locked up for weed and everything. So
yeah.
just really want to hear your experiences in those 2 years as that assistant state attorney.
So it was almost three. It was
Okay,
almost three. But let me ask you a question because I want to
of course.
before I frame the discussion with you
Sure.
on back and forth. I understand that you are well armed and well trained, but a single mom with let's say two kids who has no weapons or anything like that, burglar breaks into their home. If we've defunded law enforcement and abolished law enforcement, who does she call?
Hey, yo, police don't prevent crime, Aki. It's they police are 90% of crime already happened. Police
That's
show up to the scene, bro, and they cleaning up. They asking
uh-huh.
questions, they trying to figure it out. So for me, it's not crime prevention. Crime prevention is in the creation of jobs and the access to social services that
100%.
you need. You know what I mean? And so to your
100%.
I'll answer your question though. I won't beat around the bush. Um who can she call? I mean, first and foremost, we need to be policing our own neighborhoods like the Panthers did back in the day. And so realistically, like it's on us to take care of our communities because most of these police that police our communities aren't from where we live. And so they don't
100%.
really care about us anyway. And
Yes.
so that cop showing up after the fact doesn't give a shit about that single mother or her two children. And most likely that system that he's a part of will police and ultimately try to put those children into the prison industrial complex anyway. And so
Of
for me,
course.
the system is broken. She does need somebody to call. Not everybody's going to be strapped up like I am. I
Mm-hmm.
100% understand and comprehend that. But like, we need an actual system of accountability for police because qualified immunity and the fact that like you can coerce, bully, all types of different manipulations within the court system through the ADAs and state's attorneys. There's a lot happening that like people are going to jail under false pretenses and not getting free, right? And so, I want to see equity in regards to sentencing between black and white men, between black women and white women. Like for me, it's more about like having accountability measures in place so that people aren't able to abuse their positions.
I'm not one to operate from the extremes or the exceptions, right? If you're creating a policy, you want to help the most people that you can help. Would you say that that's fair? Okay.
I'm on mute, of course.
Yeah. So from where I stood as a law enforcement officer, as a prosecutor, the majority of cases that I dealt with, right? Burglaries, batteries. You take a look at a woman who, and I worked a DV unit for 6 months. Okay. You want to go to you want the public to answer that call, to go into that home, to tell the man not to beat his woman. Like, for the people who risk their lives to do that, those are the most dangerous calls they have, because when they go to arrest the dude, the wife sticks a knife in their back, right? That's happened. That's literally what's happened. So if we're trying to create a system that benefits the most people, we can't just take the exceptions and the extremes. What we have to do is say, okay, the majority of cases I dealt with were not these, Eric Garner. Eric Garner is down the street from my mom, right? That happened down the street from my mom. I could walk to that bodega on Victory Boulevard and Bay Street. And my mom, you walk right up Victory Boulevard, you go right to St. Mark's Place. So that's walking distance, right? That's an extreme example of bad policing, but that's not the norm. That's not I prosecuted thousands of cases. Somebody runs a light. Yo, bro, there's not a conspiracy. When you run a light, you run somebody over. That's not a conspiracy there. So if we defunded all law enforcement, what would traffic be like? You know what I'm saying?
And so when people, and let's get something clear here too, because the funding, and this is why people want to use a different word. The funding doesn't mean taking a budget from overinflated to zero. It means that the New York City Police Department doesn't have access to tanks. It means that the Philadelphia Police Department doesn't have access to like anti-aircraft weaponry, right? Like those things aren't necessary for a domestic violence case. I'm not
Correct.
disputing whether or not a cop's job is difficult. I know
Mhm.
law enforcement dudes, I know people all throughout that work, and like I respect the work that they do, but I don't respect the system that they're a part of, right? Because
Hundred.
the
We on
system
the
in
same
and of
page, bro.
itself, right, is broken. And I agree, like the fringe situations, but like policing in and of itself in urban cities is wrong. It's occupational. When I look at New York City and I see two white cops standing on a street corner in the South Bronx with no relationships in the neighborhood, they're not walking their beat. They're literally positioned like United States soldiers are in Afghanistan. That's problematic, right? Like that system is broken. And when you have kids going to jail from 9 years old and are experiencing recidivism and now are career felons, what we're doing doesn't work, right? And so I'm less saying that like police shouldn't have jobs and we don't need to spend that money, as much
Okay.
as like we need to redistribute these funds. We need to come to the table with some new innovative ideas, because this ain't working for black and brown people. And so, I think that like anyone can kind of make that statement when you look at the numbers of incarcerations, when you look at recidivism, when you look at literally we're criminalizing poverty, right? Like we're not
Yes.
providing people opportunities, access,
Giuliani.
and
You're
resources,
you're describing Giuliani.
right? But like we're policing poverty, we're
Mm-hmm.
making poverty illegal. And
Mm-hmm.
so that anything that comes from that standpoint, that like these people, the whole oppositional thought process of us versus them, police go into a neighborhood, us versus them, nah, bro, we all American citizens. And so for me, like that's where I'm coming from. Not that there shouldn't be
Okay.
police, as much as like we need to really think with people like yourself that have done the work and can attest to both sides of it. What ideas can we bring to the table to make this a more equitable process?
Let me tell you, like, I agree with everything you're saying, but you need me in that room, because until the system
Oh,
does
I
change.
want you in that room. I
Yeah.
100% need you in there.
I'll give you an example, right? Had a judge, love her, right? Awesome judge. What she would do before cases, though, is get all the defense attorneys and get the prosecutors. She had one prosecutor, which was me. So I have all the cases. Prosecutors have all the cases. Every criminal case is mine in that track, right?
Right.
So you get private attorney, he got one case.
Right.
Private attorney, she got one case. Public defender got a lot, but they don't got all.
Right.
So in the room, she has to manage her docket. She's going to ask, what are we doing with this? What are we doing with this? And she has ability to influence what we're doing with this.
Right. This is the judge.
State, I looked at this case. It looks like you have evidence problems. What's your offer again? Right? And defense attorneys will say, well, judge, my client is this, my client's a student, my client's that. And when I noticed that the defense attorney represents a person of color, some of the arguments aren't made that are made for people of majority culture. And so now I have to bridge that gap. I have to be Vlad from the hood who knew how much drugs and guns got dumped in my community. And I have to be reasonable and say, okay, wait a minute. There's some mitigating factors here that I need to contemplate in my offer because this bozo's not doing it. Do you know what I'm saying? But in these backroom discussions, if there's no representation, there's nobody of color, we're at a supreme disadvantage because it becomes very easy to say, well, you give me this one, white favor,
right,
and I'll throw you that one, black convict.
Right. And like, that's really where I'm coming from too, is that piece. And I appreciate you in this conversation and the transparency, because you learned to me, right? Like, I've never sat in those situations. I just know that from where I'm from in West Philadelphia, we don't got a fair chance, right? Like, I got homies sitting up doing fed time, state time, running from the police right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never had a chance because society deemed them as throwaways, right? Like, I work with kids every single day.
Well, hold on. I got to push back on that. Bruh, you don't get convicted for nothing.
No, you don't get convicted for nothing. But I mean, when you growing up in a situation, right? So Staten Island, perfect example. You growing up in the projects in Staten Island, all you see around you is guns, drugs, and violence, right? That's the situation that you in. Mom Deuce is struggling. She might be cracked out, bro. You might not even have a mom. She might be staying with Big Mama and all that.
No doubt.
Your homies is trying to get to it. They're not going to McDonald's. They're not going to Target, right? Like, should we be? Sure. Are those the conversations that we need to start having with our young men and women around how to properly go about these things? Absolutely. But when you're in a crime-infested environment and you're so focused on survival, you make choices based off of survival. So back again, we're criminalizing survival. We're criminalizing poverty. And so until we get away from criminalizing poverty, the system can't work, right? Like, if I get caught with cocaine in West Philadelphia, I get charged. But if I'm a white boy caught in Delco County, nothing happens to me. And so if that's the case, it's not working, right? And so, like, that's really where I'm coming from. Not to say that, like, the whole system is incorrect. There are great people in it, but because you came from Staten Island, because you're from Shaolin, you have those lived experiences, you come in there with that empathy. There's so many people that don't have that empathy, right? Like we were talking about earlier with doctors, they just don't have it. They believe that because we're Black or brown, we have a higher tolerance for pain. We're just not trying hard enough. And so like that, you don't have insurance because you're X, Y, and Z. And so those assumptions get applied to us unfairly and unjustly. And ultimately it leads to a much different outcome for us, right? And so I'm less like, I got no opposition for you being in the room. I need you. I need thousands of you in the room, right? I need people that are going to sit down and use logic. But I feel like a lot of the conversations that we have are abolish the police. I love the police and everything they do. And it's like people just refuse
binary thinking.
Exactly.
But here, don't get it twisted, bro, because I had a reputation amongst defense attorneys because I'm serious about punishing violence, about punishing. You hurt somebody, I'm coming after you, right? And I hear everything you're saying, but I grew up in the same hood, not the same, but I grew up in a similar hood. I found football, and football used God to find me to get me out. But I wasn't, I did scramble a little bit. I was ready for violence, but I didn't go look to hurt people. And if I did hurt people, I deserve punishment. Because, bruh, talk to a victim, bro. Look a mother in the eye who's burying her son who got 3 bullets in his face because he got the wrong color on.
I'm not disputing that. But on the other side, when you're looking at that mother who
was the mother of the child that got slaughtered that led to the slaughter of that child. It's cyclical, bro, right? Like hurt people hurt people. The
Without a doubt.
system in and of itself redlined us, put us in places where we couldn't get jobs, undereducated us, underemployed us. Every situation possible, the system has failed people of color in the in urban environments. And
Hmm.
so when I'm saying that, like, yo, I will never blame a victim. Violent crime, like, there has to be punishment, there has to be accountability across the board. Like, as a person, as a human, I believe in accountability.
Hmm.
But what I'm saying is that, like, much like with schools, we become super punitive, right? Like, this is
Hmm.
not about rehabilitation. If I send you to prison, you're not getting better. I'm
You're getting
sending you to
punished.
become a gladiator, right? Like, you can't get a
A super
GED,
criminal.
you can't get an associate's, you can't get a bachelor's. We've taken away the ability of people to reclaim who they are. We give them a felony, we then marginalize them in this country, right? And like, you lose so many of these rights. Yo, there are kids that make a mistake at 18 that will never get their lives back again, right? And
Hmm.
so, like, yes, I agree. First of all, I've never been in that situation. I've never had to confront a mom about accountability for something that happened, right? Like,
Hmm.
I've consoled parents that have lost kids from the schools that I worked at, but never in your position. And so I will
Hmm.
never talk like I know 100% because I don't, and I can see that up front. But what I
Hmm.
will say is that, like, this has to go beyond conversations, and we have to realize that, like, what we see as outcomes are the outcomes of situations that go beyond just that one-on-one situation, right? Like, that gun charge or that gunshot that left that person dead was the byproduct of so many things that came
100%.
before it. And if we're not addressing those external situations, those other things that are happening, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, in my opinion.
Law enforcement and prosecution is never the fix. It is a band-aid, right? But that's why my life has always been about faith first. Because until you, like, darkness can never drive out darkness. Putting a person in an 8.5 foot, 8 by 10 foot cell with other hardened super criminals, and not a criminal is not the right word, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
But they're being socialized in that environment
right,
to be monsters, right? COs talk about how there's no such thing as a fair fight. You touch one of us, we jump in you. Like, what? Like, I agree with you, the whole system is broken. But like the story of the starfish, I can grab a starfish and I can throw that one in the sea and I can make a difference for that case. When I speak to a youth, or I speak to a person in church, or I speak to a person on the street, I can talk about the love of God and I can try to fix that heart. Because until we have a heart fix, like, this country's history is deplorable and despair. I mean, Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? But he destroyed how many people that were already here. Like, we celebrate that, and I'm half Italian. Like, my dad celebrates Christopher Columbus. I'm like, Dad, you got it twisted.
right.
Like, you just, Dad, you just miss me with all that,
Right,
right? But the real fix, there's no greater proof of a living God than a changed life.
right.
I literally had a 92 FS Beretta with me at all times at 21 years of age, hoping to take a life. The Philly, New York rhetoric, the rage, the anger. I was one of like 3 New Yorkers at Millersville. And I called him Lucifer, right? I called it Lucy for short, my Beretta, because I was just hoping one day it would get to that thing, because I was so full of rage. I was so full of the violence the projects had put in me. But until I realized that God valued my life enough to send his son to die on a cross, an innocent death for me, then then I learned the value of life. If he could love me that much, and I have 2 sons and I have 2 daughters, bruh, I will fiercely, fiercely, to the ultimate extent of my life, defend their souls and their physical well-being with everything that I have. To sacrifice one of them for people who were hurting them, that's just, that's a next level of love. But that love changed me. Now I put the gun away, I picked up a Bible. I put the gun away and I picked up love. I put the gun away and I picked up community and peace and harmony. And I said, I need to be a prosecutor so that I can bring peace and harmony to victims and their families, but I can also be in the arena where you're not going to let me tell you, bro, law enforcement officers will stop you on a pretext stop because you're black, and they will, if you have marijuana or whatever on you, now you going down, right? But the stop was bogus. They broke the law. You need me to know that they broke the law so that when the motion to dismiss comes, I don't contest it. I know it's a garbage stop. Nah, bruh, you're not doing that. You're not doing that to our people, right? So, but it's the real fix is when human beings love one another. We as a people don't love each other enough to not kill each other, to not shoot each other. We don't go to Beverly Hills and to, the South Shore of Staten Island raising a ruckus. The reason why they station cops on Jersey Street in New Brighton and now Bourne is because we hurt each other walking down the damn street. Do you feel me? So the way they're trying to say, okay, I'm gonna station cops there, and unfortunately they have no relationship, they don't walk a beat, they have no connection to the community, they have no love, they wind up killing us and stepping on our necks for loose cigarettes, right? But all of that gets fixed when, instead of doing harm to one another, because yeah, it sucks, racism sucks. This country's founded on racism. The reason why we're the superpower that we are is because we have free labor through slavery for years. I get all that. But everybody has to make a choice for themselves. You're not picking up a gun and shooting somebody, especially a person of color. I didn't do it. And if one of us does it to another one of us, bruh, they are just as much as a problem as the racist system that's working against us.
Hey, so I'm really excited to announce the first ever advertiser for the Third Lab podcast. And of course, it's the homie Teddy Gandy and his team from Blacks Apparel. Blacks is a clothing company that focuses on Black reality, both past and present. They share daily Blacks or Black facts, quotes, and content regarding Black reality through their social media. So stop by the store at blacks.com. That's BLACTS.com to check out the Blacks basic tees and all of their inventory. Blacks also uses its platform to collaborate with local artists, so keep an eye out for their limited edition tees and apparel. Make sure to use the promo code THIRDLAP for 10% off your first purchase. I mean, really, what you waiting for? Get the blacks.com, Third Lap, for 10% off your first purchase. Support the homie Teddy, support the podcast. Let's go.
Yo, this could be this would be like 8 hours, yo. And this is a ongoing conversation that you and I have, and we'll continue to have as long as we rocking, which would be
I
forever.
love you, bro.
I love you too, man. And Vlad, more than anything, bro, I appreciate this conversation, right? Because we talked about it before we got on, and we knew we'd get to this point, but it's all love, yo. Like, we might not see eye to eye on this, but in the end of the day, my respect for you and the work that you've done, I appreciate you, brother. And I appreciate you bringing the perspective that you have as someone that has been on the insides, in the trenches, both growing up in the hood, but also as that state's attorney that was responsible for doling out that punishment, or responsible for pursuing or not pursuing those cases. And I know you did that with heart, with love, with empathy, bro. And I appreciate you for it, because I'm sure that if someone else was in your shoes, the number of brothers that would have been prosecuted will probably be a lot higher. So I appreciate you, yo. And I thank you for that. And I love you for that, bro. And, I hope that anybody listening to this understands that, like, this is how brothers talk, right? Like, this is how people that love each other, we're going to get into it sometimes, but at the end of it, we're going to dap it up, we're going to hug it out, and we're going to move along. And so, with that being said, I feel like, we dug into it. We dug into it, but I really do want to hear more about your progression, because you spent almost those 3 years as a state's attorney, but like, you're no longer in that work. And so, ultimately, what led to your transition? Why did you decide that it was maybe time to move on?
So here's the confession part of the story, and the most unfortunate, part for me. Remember, I told you about the divorce. Well, my daughter would come and spend months with me, not months, but a month at a time with me. She was 3, 4, and 5 at the time I was a prosecutor in Florida. When she turned 5, she started school, and she was not willing to talk to me on the phone. Like, she would say, "Daddy, come home," and throw the phone, and that would be the extent. So rather than try to candidate going back and forth on Halloween, like she started school in September. On Halloween, I resigned my position. And for 2 years, bruh, I was looking for a prosecutor job. Here's the hard part of the story of my life. All right. I got one, and I made a mistake like a week before I was supposed to start. So the interview process was like 6 months, and I was supposed to start on like August 27th. And so like on August 24th, I'm living in New York at my dad's, and the lead detective is supposed to come to my house, my dad's house, to see, how I'm living, make sure I don't got no like marijuana plants growing in the garage and stuff like that. So she asked me, she says, I see you have a license to carry unconcealed. And I said, yep. And she goes, well, where's the burner? Well, she didn't say that, but she's like, where's the gun? And remember plaques?
Yeah, of
How
course.
this is 2008.
Mm.
So February of 2008, Giants win the Super Bowl.
Boo.
Right? But in like what's it called? Right before Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
2008, he shoots himself with Glock, stupid
Yeah.
gun. I hate Glocks for that reason. All right, there's no safety. The safety's on the trigger. If he had a Beretta like me, he would have never shot himself because there's a rollback safety. But he shoots himself in the thigh, and then like you start hearing stuff about. I'm already in New York, and I already got the burner with me, legitimate burner. I had a license to carry in Florida. I was a state attorney. It was all legit. But I never looked up the law to see if it was okay to have it in my home. I was never carrying it, and so I just panicked, bro. I said I sold it. So 5 hours later, I called her. I said I can't deal with my faith. I'm not gonna lose my law license over a lie. So I called the lead detective back and I said, listen, give me a call, because I got a voicemail. I said, give me a call, please, as soon as you can. She called me in the morning, and I told her, I said, look, this is what happened. This is what I said. It's not true. I still have it. And she's like, okay, I got to talk to the lead prosecutor, the head of the office. And they rescinded the offer like that. 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Yo,
I had
that's
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In 1.5 seconds. What is it? 5 words? No, 3 words.
Yeah.
I sold it. It's 3 words.
That's it. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you peeped what I sent you. This COVID thing has allowed me to, get my bar license straight, because I just let it go. You know what I'm saying? But I got it back, and we'll see what God has to, I'm throwing my hat back in that ring. We'll see how, but,
Yeah, I see you back popping in Jersey
Yep.
with the bar. Yeah, respect, bro. And if you end up in that space, like, and that's where you're supposed to serve, and that's what God is positioning you to do his work, not do it. Because I would rather
without
you
a doubt.
than Tom, Dick, and Harry that is going to bury every black man they see, or black family, black face that they see with no empathy, right? And so, but that's crazy, man. Yeah, anybody that knows anything about New York, you got to be hella careful with the burners out there.
Yeah. And I didn't know, so I panicked.
Yeah.
But here's the beauty of the story, right? I'm already back. I'm doing an internship on the weekends for a federal criminal defense firm. So I'm already working cases. We'll see what God has in store. But
All right, Vlad, go ahead, man. You work them cases, Brad. Get them cases knocked out. Yeah.
I'm on the defense side.
Yeah.
Thank God it's a federal case. I'm not dealing
Right.
with somebody beating somebody up. So, that I have a tough time with. But this, like when I've represented people before, I told you about the clinic at Hofstra.
Yeah.
You really feel for your clients, because there is so much at stake for them.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a difficult side, at least as a prosecutor. If I lose, justice served.
Yeah.
I didn't prove my case. I didn't meet my burden.
Right.
Nobody goes to prison because, I didn't do my job right. Right. If I don't do my job right, somebody guilty might go free. Do you feel me? So at least and on this internship, I did it free. I don't want, I don't need, I got a full-time job. I got money in the bank.
Right.
But just to be back in it, just to be, so.
Yeah, I love that, man. And so talk to us about that, because that's clearly your passion, right? Like throughout this entire conversation, since the moment that I've met you and we've talked about what you said, which is faith, family, football. I love the fire too, because you got to have fire and the passion to get the job done, right? But, we're at this point now. We've talked about difficulties. We've talked about what you've had to overcome. Me and you had a nice head up session about state attorney work in the prison industrial complex.
Iron sharpen iron.
Right. I loved every moment of it, brother. But yeah, man, talk to us about what's next, yo. You know, you have now found yourself as a husband, as a father, as a leader, full of faith, full of understanding in this moment now. Where do you want to take this work into the future?
So I've always loved preaching, teaching the word of God. And irony, remember I connected you to a person through my now former church, right? They told me I wasn't fit for duty. I wasn't qualified. I applied for the prayer team at that church, and they said, "Nah, Vlad, you don't meet our
Wow.
qualifications," right?
Wow.
So, yeah. So, there's a youth minister, director of youth ministry position that I'm applying for, and we'll see. Yep. But also, prior to that incident going down with the old church, with where I have, and shout out to adoption, shout out to those who are looking to adopt. I pray that God puts children with people who have a heart for children and a heart for adoption. Prayer, shout out and blessings to all of those who have adopted, who are trying, those who are trying to have children the natural way. May God bless you all. But I want to serve God, because I feel if we fix hearts, we have a better shot of fixing this issue, especially systemic racism. Right? When you don't look at a person of color and see them as a threat, when you come in with your sidearm already unbuckled just because it's a person of color, whereas person of majority culture walks down the street with an AK or an AR, and you like, you pounding, you putting your fist up, like, nah, that don't work. But so hopefully God uses me in that. But before that split with the church, I started 2 Bible studies. So they're daily Bible studies. One is like family, and the other one is African American, brothers of color, former athletes, older family brothers with kids, and bro, that is my anchor, man. We have prayer calls on Mondays and Thursdays. We hit each other in the chat with all different kinds of things. So I just want God to use me wherever I can help people. If it's in the courtroom, if it's in the formal church, if it's on the street, if it's on the court, if it's in the gun range, just use me.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
you helped me. I'm in touch with who I was and how I was. And so that's what's next, man. I'm at a defense firm volunteering. I'm praying to get back into the prosecutor's office. My resume is out there. Cover letters are going out there. I pray nobody from my job listens to this podcast till after the move is done. But that's just my heart. Like you can't fault me for my heart. I gave you 15 years of my life.
Right.
So, speaking about my current employer.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what's next for me.
That's what's up, man. And shout outs to, I know the district attorney be tapped in on this joint right here. So hire my man Vlad, all you DAs, and they ain't never heard of the third lap, and they like, wait, charge this man. He talking about getting rid of the police. Get him out of here. So
no,
but
your points you were on point with a lot of your stuff, man, because you see the bigger picture. You see that what feeds the system, and the system is hungry for us. You talked about in other podcasts that school to prison pipeline, bro. That is our enemy. That is who we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and rulers and spiritual wickedness in high places. That systemic racism is the devil's tool.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, being in education is what gave me such a sharp understanding of how this is impacting us negatively, right? And that we criminalize these aspects of being impoverished, but aren't looking to provide any pathway to anything else. And so like my problem was that, right? Like, okay, if you are given choices, if you're provided alternate options, sure. But when your options really slinging crack rock, got a wicked jump shot, or you a shooter, or you a stabber, or you a robber, or you a scammer, right? Or you're a rapper, right? Like that, come on, we need better options for our kids. And so, why I love having people like you on, why I love having all of these different folks that I've had on the Third Lab thus far, is that it also gives our kids a chance to see you could be any damn thing you want to be, right? What you
Amen.
see in front of you don't mean
Mm-hmm.
shit.
Mm-hmm.
What you can be is limitless. It's infinite, right? And so, I hope that, again, through the ethos of this, through the messaging of it, through the core of it, that people realize there's literally nothing stopping you from
Mm-hmm.
accomplishing what you want. That yes,
Mm-hmm.
there are barriers, yes, there are things in place, but folks have come from the trenches, folks have come from all over the place to make it, right? And so anything is possible. And Vlad, I really wanted to shout you out real quick though, because I saw here that you had some time coaching the young boys. So Staten Island Hurricanes, shouts out to the Staten Island Hurricanes. I see
Mm-hmm.
you as head coach 2014, ranked number 4 nationally. Okay. Defensive
Mm-hmm.
coordinator for the 2012 team that was also ranked number 4. Talk to us a little bit about that, man. You were coaching there for a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, I coached for almost 10 years, but I moved down South Jersey. That's how you and I linked up. That was in Staten Island, and I had a little guy, my youngest. He just turned 3 on November 3rd. The missus, I keep a pretty busy schedule, working full-time job in the churches and volunteering and stuff like that. She wasn't having it. Eva, shout out to my wife, Eva. Love you,
What
babe.
up, Eva? Shout out, shout out.
Yeah, she came to the range. You
Yeah, she
remember?
was shooting the joint. She was hitting the target. Had it straight. I'm like, okay, she right. She
Uh-huh.
getting right with it.
Hmm. But I had a philosophy, man. I had a philosophy that it was never about wins and losses. I was never one of those dudes looking down in the showers. I was confident with what I got, if you get the metaphor. So I didn't need youth football to make me who I am. I had a career. And so I had certain principles that were guiding me. Like, first off is your family, secondly is your grades, and third is football. Right? People would call me, parents would call me. I would be disciplining people's kids in their home for not doing dishes, because that, to me, like, if your mom called me and said you didn't do the dishes or you didn't clean your room, I would sit you, bruh. I don't care who you are. That 2014 team that was number 4 in the country had one loss. It was our 3rd game of the year in I'm talking about in New York, before we went to nationals and we lost to the eventual national champ from Maryland, the Maryland Seahawks, right? But we lost to a team from the Bronx because one of our best offensive linemen chose to act up in school. So I sat him and we could not move the ball and people were like, now we're not going to go to Florida. You got an L. Like, okay, I don't care. Right. I have a thing about the N word, right? Because I remember being called the N word in camp in the 70s and I didn't know what it meant. Right. So I don't allow our players to use the N word. Now, everybody can do what they want. I'm not judging. But if you drop the N word in practice, you get thrown out of practice. You drop it twice, you miss a game. You drop it 3 times, I take your pads. Because I don't care about wins and losses. I care about your character. And football made my character. And so if you let me, I'll develop your character through football. We had to earn the right to practice. You know how much conditioning we did before practice just to have the right to practice? I called it 4 quarters. There were 4 different exercise drills: push-ups, crunches, burpees, and leg raises. You had 4 quarters of that. 10 reps each exercise. 4 kids, bro. You hear the thunder in the background. But that was just to earn the right to practice. You had to do that. If you couldn't do it, go home. When you can do that, you can practice.
And I feel like that really just continues to establish what type of character you have as a man, right? Like that's what it's about. And my time in football, my mom was asking me the other day, she was like, yo, when you have a son, are you like, is he going to play ball? I'm like, of course my young boy going to play ball. Like, he going to strap it up. He going to get right. And if he don't want to keep playing, sure, but I'm going to introduce it to him early on in life, because I want him to understand what this could build character wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what I learned in regards to having to rely on the next person, I didn't learn anywhere else, yo. Right? Because like, if my man misses blocking assignment, I break my leg, right?
No
Or
doubt.
if I blitz the wrong gap, the running back's 80 to the house, I cost my team the game. And so that level of accountability, I really
Mm-hmm.
didn't learn anywhere else in the same kind of like high impact sort of way. right? Like instantaneously, you're learning from your mistakes because I'm playing corner on the island and this wide receiver beat me on a quick slant. I'm cooked, right? And so you learn through football so much. And I appreciate you because also I've had coaches that were just not good, right? That just were not good, that
Mm-hmm.
weren't in it to teach young men how to
Mm-hmm.
become men, right? That
Mm-hmm.
didn't have accountability. I think of Dabo Sweeney at Clemson, and I can't stand Dabo Sweeney. He had numerous instances in which he had a chance to stand up and say the right thing and didn't.
Mm.
He's actively silenced his black players. When Deshaun Watson was on campus, he was told not to speak up, right? Like
What?
there are things with Dabo, I
Filthy.
struggle. And so when I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, damn, what you just described is the type of coaching that's necessary to teach our young black men how to avoid the streets, how to avoid those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how to not find themselves in those precarious predicaments that could cost them their lives or their freedom. And so I love the fact that, like, again, you've taken all of your experiences, but every interaction you have, it's a download. It's
No,
how
no
can I
doubt.
teach you?
Yes.
How can I help you? How can I mold you? How can I get you from where you are to where you're trying to go? And I love you for that because that's how you've approached me, right? In
Mm-hmm.
all of our interactions, you've always built me up and helped me to understand, like, here, take this and run with it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm glad we touched on that because, again, it just really drives home what kind of person you are, Vlad. And I appreciate you, my brother.
You're listening to the Third Lap Podcast with Mal Davis.
Yeah.
And so, we've spanned your career. We've talked about you and what's next in regards to potentially getting back into the DA or continuing your work in the church. And so, talk to us, man. What's your why? Like, what's the reason that Vlad goes so hard? Because Vlad, you could just chill in Jersey. You got a beautiful house, beautiful family. You don't have to be the advocate and the ally that you are. You don't have to be the man that you are. Why do you continue to move forward in the way that you do?
Because what my why is to say thank you every day for what God did for me with his son on the cross. My body is not mine. My house is not mine. My children are not mine. Even my mind and my eyes are not mine. They are all under my authority, but the owner is God. So what I look at, what I say, what I contemplate, what I think on, where I go, all has to reflect the owner. We have 168 hours in a week. If lucky, many spend, the couple in church, and then that's like 166 left. So what are we doing? Right? And I'm not judging anybody. Everybody has their own faith walk. I'm not a denominational guy. I'm not a religion guy. Are you walking a life? Are you living a life? So, like, I'm a preacher, right? The greatest sermon I will ever preach is the dash between my birth, year of birth, and my year of death. That little dash. How I live my life is more important than anything I say in a pulpit to anybody. So, like, every night, my family has a Bible study. Every night we're praying because they're not my children. They are God's children first. He chose me to be there. And so, just so you know, I call Taylor and Marcus my children, but they're Eva's children from a different marriage, but they're mine. I don't call them stepchildren. I will never call them my stepchildren. When I handle issues for them in their school, and I'm her dad. That's just my mentality. Now I have a great relationship with their dad. We actually have a competition about who's going to look best by September 1st. He's a boxer. He's a military dude. So we have a great relationship. We kind of co-parent, right? So I have mad respect for him. Shout out to Tony. Tony White. This is actually his shirt. Tony White. That's their dad's shirt.
Shout out, Tony. What's up, Tony?
Yeah, no doubt. But so my why is I want to honor God for that commitment to me, that sacrifice for me. So I don't know how many breaths I get to take on this world,
Right.
in this world, but I want to honor him with everything I do.
Yo, yo, talk that talk, Vlad. That's why you on here, man. Because I know you was on Speak That Truth, the power, bro.
Oh,
Power, the truth, man.
that prophetic. Yep.
Yeah, you stay packing the wisdom, and I just appreciate you, because again,
Likewise.
even with that approach towards how you interact with Tony, you could have let ego get in the way and not mapped out with Tony like that, and y'all could have friction, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
y'all could be like, when I see you on the first, it's popping, like I'm gonna knock you out, homie,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of like, yo, we're gonna flex, but we're gonna love, right? Like it's all love. And so again, it just shows your approach to life, and people that are listening understand what's happening, right? Is like Vlad is intentional, right? He
Mm-hmm.
understands that he was given a gift and he doesn't abuse that gift. His
Mm-hmm.
gift doesn't make him better than other people. His
No.
gift is just his gift, but it's his gift to give to the world, right?
100%.
And we got to comprehend that. We all got a gift. We got to tap in. We got to figure out what it is. That's what the whole purpose of the Third Lap
Mm-hmm.
podcast is.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out what the heck your gift is,
Yes.
and then give it to the world unapologetically, yo.
100%.
And watch how the world manifests itself, and the universe manifests itself around you. But if
100%.
you're not giving your best, if you're not giving your fire, if you're not giving your intensity, your passion,
Love it.
you can't expect nothing in return.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't put out what you had to give. You, like they tell you from jump, you get what you put in, right? What you
Mm-hmm.
put into it is what you get out of it. And so if you're
Mm-hmm.
not putting everything you have into it, you can't expect it all back in return, man. That's not how life works. And so sorry for the Instagram generation that think clout chasing and you could be popping. You got to work for it, yo. You got to earn it. That has never changed. That will never change. So understand what Vlad is saying. I want to make sure I'm stamping it. Earn it, get it, and then give it to the rest of the world.
Word up.
And so, Vlad, I appreciate you. So,
I'm ready to take a collection. I'm ready to pass an offering plate, bro. If we was in church.
Hey, listen, I'm ordained to do weddings, so I already kind of took my path. My father's an ordained minister. We've had
Love it. Yeah, we did chop it up about the Bible and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. My pop's on it. He speaks
Yeah.
that power of the truth too. And
Yes.
so, it's important that we all figure out what our gift is to the world, what has God blessed us with, so that we could give it in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, bro, we're getting towards the tail end of the podcast here. What are your motivational thoughts for the people? So really want to stamp this episode because you dropped so much knowledge and wisdom. What do you want to make sure people walk away with at the end of this?
I want to put faith in context, because I believe people would be more drawn to faith if, especially in the Christian faith, we didn't chew people up in church and spit them out. Like, I'm gonna unpack this for you real quick. I believe people learn to relate to God primarily through how they related to their father, but in one of three ways: as Savior, as Lord, and I'll save the last one when I'm done. Right? So Savior is, I'm in trouble, come save me, or I'm a sinner, come save me. That's the most common type of relationship people have with faith. And as you fluctuate in and out, the church will chew you up. Oh, you got pregnant. No, you pray and you come to church because you praying for something, but we're gonna chew you up. We're gonna because you're not walking right. A lot of those people who come out of Savior's type relationship, they go to Lord. Like, now I relate to God as Lord, and then they become kind of judgy because they remember what they were like when they needed a Savior. They kind of love the word, but they kind of use the word to judge others. You feel me? Right? So the church kind of chews up those saviors with the people who now know him as Lord. But the third and the most valuable type of interaction for me is those who know him as daddy. When you have that relationship with your heavenly father, like, think about this. If God were to show up right now in this podcast right now, would we run? Would we cover ourselves in shame? Or would we open up, like when you walk through the door and you kill your children? Now your children know you could whoop that behind, right? The children know you could bring thunder and smack fire out that tail, but they know you love them. So they come, daddy, daddy. That is, when you understand that dynamic, when you see God as daddy, he's not this authority figure just waiting, like the church waiting for you to sin. Look at her blouse going to Mexico, her skirt going to Canada. Right? So Here's my thing about putting religion in perspective for everybody. On your best day, preachers, teachers, deacons, trustees, on your best day, you will never make God love you more. And on your worst day, on the most darkest night of your soul, you will never make God love you less. So don't run from daddy. Daddy is, his arms are open. I don't care if you cracked out. I don't care if you shacking with a million dudes or a million chicks, you knocking down the neighborhood. I don't care where you are at this moment in time. Your daddy, your heavenly daddy, has his arms open. He loves you. He loves you so much, he'll take you just as you are, but he loves you that much, he won't leave you like that. He'll make you better. So that's my parting shot.
I really appreciate the nugget that you dropped right there. And it's funny because, over time, as I've interacted with more atheists, atheists are people that got burned out by the church, right?
Yes.
And like, I have had conversations with folks around that. I'm like, yo, really what you are talking about is the fact that you realize that the God that was sort of propped up through the church and propped up through the Bible that people kind of misconstrue or misunderstand, like you felt you were given a false bill of goods.
Yeah.
And so you went the whole opposite side, right?
Sure.
And so for me, like I've spent time agnostic, a little bit of time not believing in God, quote unquote, but where I am is like, yo, at the very least, we can comprehend, we don't necessarily know, but to say that it doesn't exist, I can't get behind that. But respect anybody and where they are. But like I appreciate what you said around like God will take you. You can't be happier when you're at your best and won't think of you any less when you're at your worst. And I've stepped to God at my absolute worst. And without God, without the universe, without the spiritual ability that I have, like we wouldn't be chopping it up right now. So, everything that you said absolutely resonated with me. And so, you clearly a super intelligent dude. So, we're at the component, the Third Lab book club book list that we have. So, are there any books that you suggest people check out just to learn more about anything that you really find interesting or you're passionate about?
So I have three for you. And the first is fun reading, right? But it's the Mamba mentality. I don't know if you hit that, but so people talk about clutch shots or high pressure players. And I'll never forget what I read in Kobe's book about Mamba mentality. But he said there's no such thing as a clutch shot. He said what you think is a clutch shot is based on the external circumstances. What I see is just a shot, something I've done 10 million times. I've done it from every place in the gym. So when I'm shooting a shot, I'm just shooting a shot. And it happens to go in at the buzzer, but that's not my circumstance. I'm just shooting a shot. So for those of you who want to be excellent, master the minors, master the basics. He will shoot layups just off the glass, like over and over and over again. So when comes crunch time and everybody's succumbing to the pressure, he's just shooting a layup.
And what was it, Bruce Lee that said, I don't fear a man that's practiced 1,000 kicks once. I fear the man that's practiced one kick 1,000 times, right?
Yes.
Like, you damn right. Because the dude on his 1,000th kick will kick fire out you.
Absolutely. So that's one. The second one I think is useful for your audience. It might be a lesser known book, but it's called Crucial Conversations, right? If you have family dynamics, relationship dynamics, or even you're a manager, supervisor, or you got to work with people, there are conversations that you're neglecting probably right now because you don't want to get into it. You don't want, but it's going to make you unhappy not doing it. And then you're going to try one day and you're going to get frustrated, emotions rise. So what Crucial Conversations teaches you is how to create safety so you can share and get to higher ideals. Because if you go into a conversation saying, I'm right, you're wrong, right? Nobody's going to win. You're not going to make progress. But if I say, how do I create safety for you to share your true self? And now I can share my true self. And now we can brainstorm to get to a better, higher ideal. We've elevated our relationship. It was transformative for me this summer because quarantine, let me tell you, quarantine changes the dynamics of a lot of relationships. You know what I'm saying? So for my marriage and for my parental, acumen, I needed to develop better communication skills. I can articulate a principle, but that's not achieving a relationship. That's different. You know what I'm saying? So crucial conversations. And then the last is real quick. It's the fundamental one. It's the Bible. So I encourage everybody to read that. And if you don't speak 1500s King James English, there's the NIV or the NLT. But those are, once you get into it, you can see some of the principles that are being articulated, and you could be like, "Oh, this isn't, what I thought it might have been. This is some good wisdom here." So always got to go back to the word.
Yeah, of course. If you didn't suggest the Bible, I was going to suggest it. And it's funny because I've actually never read the New Testament. I had to read the Old Testament in college, and
Uh-huh.
like I love the Old Testament because it's like it's the like, are you playing around? Oh, I'm gonna just destroy all that. Then are you
It's
playing?
R-rated.
Cool. Yeah, it's R rated. It's not for the faint of heart. God was getting it in back in the Old
Whoa.
Testament. God was letting you have it,
Uh-huh.
and I definitely appreciate the crucial conversations. It's so important to be able to
Oh.
have tough conversations. And like you said, the Bible, people
Mm-hmm.
find so much solace in the Bible. And even if you only use it for the parables and for the stories and for the life lessons, you don't necessarily get into the religious component of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much you can gain from the Quran, for the Torah, from the Bible, right? Even
100%.
from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Like these are stories that have existed for a really long time and
Mm-hmm.
have foundational elements to them for you to succeed in life, yo. So, folks, open up your minds to all different types of knowledge and really appreciate it and approach it from that standpoint. And so, Vlad, man,
Wait, can I share one last thing? Because you
of
touched on the
course, bro. Of
Quran and stuff like that.
course.
Shout out to everybody who's a believer. Shout out to people who are unbelievers. Let me share this, right? Because I like MetLife Stadium, right? It's a big football stadium. And what I believe, this is my own personal viewpoint about theology and different faiths and all of this. We're all at the same game, but we have different seats. So if I'm at the 50-yard line, I've got good close-ups, but I don't get the perspective of what's on the other side of the field. If you're in the nosebleeds, you get great perspective, but you don't get details. Where we all go wrong as people of faith is we say, I'm right, you're wrong, rather than say, give me your perspective, fill in my picture. Because everything I believe, I'm going to show you with how I treat you, not what I say, but how I treat you. So shout out to people who are following Islam, people who are following Judaism, wherever you find yourself in your faith walk. You're in the game. You're at the game. Let's vibe, let's connect, let's talk, and let's share each other's perspectives without
Yeah.
getting into who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah, I love it, man. Like you said, sit back, let people fill in those blind spots for you. Shout outs to folks, Buddhism,
Mm-hmm.
all of it, yo.
Taoism. Yep.
Taoism, whatever you find yourself pursuing, whatever brings you joy, whatever brings you, um, yeah, whatever brings you joy and happiness in life, man, that keeps you on your straight and narrow path, man. Shout out to you for pursuing it and keeping it that way. And like you said, Joe, let's get into a place where we do less judging and more
Mm-hmm.
accepting of other people and of other cultures. Because then
Mm-hmm.
in the end of the day, we all win, right? Like, this world is not meant to be homogenous. It's not meant for everyone to do the exact same thing. Like it would when people say utopias, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Cause like that sounds boring to me, dog. I need to
Mm-hmm.
shake it up a little bit. It can't be
Mm-hmm.
perfect. Perfection don't exist. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I wanted a little spicy, but like it can't be where we are now, right? Like there's a much better place that we can all gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it comes from what you said, sitting back, listening, letting perspective, like gaining perspective from other people to fill
Yep.
in our picture so that we can
Yep.
become complete human beings. And
Yep.
so, Vlad, we here at the end. Where can people find you on social media? If folks want to interact with any of the work that you've done previously, is there any way that they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm not. I have a Facebook. I have a Instagram. That I'm old, bro. That's not what I do. If anybody feels the need to vibe with me, I'll give you my personal email address. Right. So it's vdarge7@gmail.com. vdarge7. Hit me up. Let's break bread. Let's talk. Let's vibe the same way. We might even invite Mal, unless you're an Eagles fan. Then I got to chop it up one on one. But I can't have y'all ganging up on me, y'all. But now reach out to me. Reach out to me if you have a question, or you want to share your thoughts, or the church burned you and you vent. Listen, God got thick skin, so I have no problem with anybody's viewpoint. You know what I'm saying? Now,
Yeah.
if you hurt somebody, that's different.
Right. Now, Vlad gonna violate you if you out here hurting people, and I'm gonna violate you too. We're not out
No
here to hurt
doubt.
people, man. We out here to love each other and help each
Yes,
other
sir.
grow and aspire for greatness. Yeah, nah, man. And I appreciate you putting the email out there. I'll definitely say, folks, if you have questions about what Vlad and I talked about in regards to his work as a state attorney, hit that man and have that conversation with him respectfully, right? Like, don't get in his inbox and start talking crazy, because then I'm gonna violate you. But like, respectfully approach that man and have that conversation, because that's, again, we got to fill in our voids, right? Like, you filled in gaps for me to help me understand how to better articulate my thought process towards abolishing police and abolishing prisons, right? That like, there has to still be conversations with the right people at the table. Can't just take y'all all away. It don't exist. It won't work that way. And so again, I'll post your email address when the episode goes up so people can reach out to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course, bro. And so, yeah, we made it to the end, man. Chopped it up. We did what we always do. We got to figure out when we're going back to the ranges. It's been too long. Ammo prices are getting back a little bit to regular again. It's not people just snatching them up off the shelves.
Yeah.
So, shouts out to everybody that listened to this episode today. As always, I appreciate you all.
We should meet at the range with your listeners. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, listen. Well, one of the dudes I work with is trying to come up with like a reoccurring like, was it Brass and Beers? Laquan, shout out, Laquan, shout out to you, Laquan. We're gonna figure this out, brother. We're gonna get it done. But yeah, he is also committed to legal gun ownership and making sure that we find a place where we can find camaraderie with each other. And so we were talking about ways for us as like grown men to connect at the range and also just build and grow and prosper, man. We need to find positive ways to interact with each other and learn from one another. And so, yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll figure out a way. Maybe it's a Third Lap podcast from the range. I don't know. We'll see.
That'd be dope.
Might not hear too much with all the banging in the background, but at least we was really there. But yeah, Vlad, any last words you want to share before we log out?
Yeah, man, I'm praying for everybody under the sound of my voice. I'm praying for your podcast, your family, everything that we talked about before, with the health situations and stuff like that. But I just pray that we find a way to have more peace with one another. Systemic racism is real. The system is broken. But as individual players begin to do the right things and with the love and a care and concern and compassion for people, I feel like in individual instances, the system can work.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I agree. We have a long way to go to get there. It's going to take a lot of tough conversations, a lot of looking in the mirror and taking accountability for our own actions as people of color. Even though we have been systemically turned away, we've also embodied the negative connotations of what it is to be Black. We've taken ownership of those things when we should not have, right? Like that never defined us. And so until we could let those things go, we're not gangsters, we're not thugs, we're not degenerates, we're not monkeys, we're not any of that stuff. But we own it now. It's our music, it's our culture, it's our entertainment. We've taken it on in such a very negative way that until we can start unraveling some of that stuff and realize it was wrong, we shouldn't be in and out of jail, right? Like we shouldn't be shooting at each other. Gang banging, that just ain't the way, bro.
Nope.
Nobody won gang banging, right? And so, until we start taking that ownership, we're going to still be victimized. And so, it starts with understanding, like, yes, there are systems at play, but we also are doing this to ourselves. We're feeding on ourselves as well. And so, like, let's take that step to turn around and realize, we got to do better too. And Vlad, you definitely shed a lot of light on that from the standpoint of being an attorney, but also a man of faith. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate you. This is the Third Lap podcast. As always, here with my man, Vlad. Thank you again, my brother. Each one, teach one. We all learn together. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Third Lap Podcast. This is your host, Mal Davis. Please visit thethirdlappodcast.com for more information about the podcast, about our guests, and also to see our reading list. You can find us at The Third Lap Podcast on LinkedIn and Facebook, at Third Lap on Twitter, and at Third_Lap_podcast on Instagram.
If you know anyone that would be great to be featured on this show, please reach out to our host, Mal Davis. He's always looking for interesting people to learn more about them and to talk about their pathway. Thank you so much again. Have a good one.